Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. In the past couple of videos I've made in the music making playlist, which I'll link up there, I think I've made a point of how much importance I place on workflow. I think as writers and producers we need to be efficient with our workflow so that we don't really get in our own way as we're trying to follow an idea, and take it home. These are my top 5 Logic Pro X tips and tricks for a more efficient workflow, and I'm hoping these will help you stay inspired while you're writing and producing. I've wasted enough of your time, let's get into it. Tip number 1, create your own shortcuts. In any DAW, it's already important to know your shortcuts and know your way around, but creating your own shortcuts can give you that little extra edge, in particular when it comes to tools. So in Logic, I think the 4 most important tools you're going to be using will be your pointer tool, scissors tool, fade tool, and marquee tool. So typically when you want to change between these, you'll head up to this toolbar and pick one from this drop-down menu. If you've spent some extra time with Logic and you know your way around a little bit, you'll know that T is going to bring up that toolbar for you. But there's an even quicker way. Head up to Logic Pro X, Key Commands, and Edit. Here we can create custom key commands that bring up those tools. In my case, I've assigned the buttons 1, 2, 3, and 4 on my keyboard to the pointer tool, scissors tool, fade tool, and marquee tool respectively. And you're going to do this using the search bar here. So we're going to type in pointer and click set pointer tool. And in the key value, you can see mine's already 1. If it isn't already, change it to 1. We're going to head up to scissors, set scissors tool, and again, change this to 2. Go to fade, set fade tool, and you can set that to 3. And if we head to marquee, set marquee tool, and change that to 4. Once you've done that, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your keyboard should bring up pointer tool, scissors tool, fade tool, and marquee tool. Makes it a lot easier when you're doing edits. So if I want to chop this up, I can hit 2, cut it there, tuck down a little bit there, create a fade in again. Maybe I want to cut out just the middle part of this and move it over here. Just copy it over there. It's a simple trick, but it makes your workflow so much faster. This really sped me up when I found out you could do this. The second tip is consolidate your audio, or as Logic puts it, join. This is a really great way of taking things that you might have broken into multiple clips and combining them into a single track again. So say that I want this 4-bar section that I chopped up a little bit to be combined back into one region. I'm going to highlight these regions, press Command J, and this dialog box should come up. I'll press Create or Enter, and bang, it's become one seamless audio file now. So some of you might be asking why I didn't just bounce in place, and this is why. If I highlight the tracks and press Control Command B, which is bounce in place, I'm already confronted with decisions I might not have been willing to make right now. Things like, do I want to bypass the effects or do I want them baked in? Do I want to include the automation or not? Do I want a new track and simply mute this track? Or do I want to replace the track entirely? The Command J or join or consolidate trick is simply to get you working faster by taking a part that you've created, possibly out of multiple regions, and combining them so you can move on. It also helps you if you want to move and rearrange things around the track. For example, if it's a drum loop that you've created with a specific kick pattern, you can move that kick pattern around now without having to select 5 regions or 8 regions or whatever before moving things. So it speeds you up in that way. A further tip here is that if, for example, I want to fill up these 4 bars from 10 to 14, so I've moved a piece there and move a piece here. As you can see, these regions don't really fill that area up. So to do so, you might think, okay, I'll select these and press Command J. But what's going to happen is you'll only fill from the beginning of this region to the end of that region. But I wanted to go all the way to bar 14. Well, this is where you would press 4 or bring up your marquee tool, and you can select the exact area you want joined together or turned into one region. This is where you press Command J. Enter, and you've created the full 4-bar piece that you wanted. Tip number 3, and this is really going to speed you up, is creating custom plugin folders. I only recently found out how to do this, and this sped me up like crazy. So you'll notice if I go into audio effects, you've got the regular folders that everybody has, but you've also got Ben's Toolbox up the top, and this is a custom folder that I made for things that I use pretty often. So to create a custom plugin folder, go up to Logic Pro X, Preferences, and Plugin Manager. Right here you'll find all of the folders that usually show up when you click on Audio Effects down here, and you can add new folders by clicking this button. Let's call this one New Plugs. There you go. And we'll move it up here so it's easier to find. Now to put plugins in that folder, come down to where it says manufacturer. Let's use Logic stock ones for now. And you're going to have all of the Logic stock plugins right here. Anything that you want to put in that folder, simply click and drag in. So we'll put the tape delay in, put the tremolo in, and we'll put the auto sampler in there. There you go. And you're going to press done. Great. Now the next time you want to put a plugin on a track, you go to Audio Effects, and there you go. There's the folder you created and all the plugins that you put in it. And you can customize that anytime. If you want to remove that folder, simply go back to Preferences and Plugin Manager, click on it, and delete it. And then press done. Check again, and it's gone. This is handy because as we gain experience as producers, we tend to find a few favorite plugins that we know can do the job in certain situations. For example, something like the Vintage Tube EQ is something I've really grown to love. And instead of having to go Audio Effects, EQ, Vintage EQ Collection, Tube EQ, Stereo every time I need to bring it up, it's as easy as going Ben's Toolbox, Vintage Tube EQ Stereo. It's right there. Tip number 4, group processing your tracks. Okay, so we've created a small percussion loop here. It goes like this. Wonderful. And they're all percussion elements, something that might accompany a drum kit. So I think it's safe to say you might process them in similar ways. Now, instead of heading into the mixer and adding the same couple of plugins to each and every one of those tracks, it's going to be faster and more CPU efficient to group the tracks and treat them all as one. So we're going to grab these 3 tracks and we're going to group them together by pressing Command, Shift, and D. And that should bring up this dialog. Now, I didn't know the difference between a folder stack and a summing stack for quite a while. The difference is that a folder stack simply groups them together for ease of being able to mute and solo and a volume adjustment. Whereas the summing stack actually creates a channel that everything is going to. So it actually buses them together so you can put plugins on that affect all of the signals at once. So we're going to pick summing stack. We're going to press create. And now you can see they're all in the handy little folder. If we press solo, solos them all together. Mute, mutes all 3 signals. And we can just name this percussion. Okay, so now we've got a percussion folder. Say we wanted to add a high pass filter to all of these tracks. Instead of 3 EQs to get that done, we can now do it with 1 EQ. So I just grab an EQ here and say I want to clean it up like that. You can hear that's affecting all of them. And the same thing goes for sends. So if you take this group and you send it off to a bus, we'll create a track, and we make this some sort of delay. Full mix there, something like that, like that. That's going to send all 3 of those percussions, everything that's going into that group track, to that bus. Really, grouping the tracks means that you can do a fraction of the work for the same outcome. Like if you had 10 tracks going into a group, you'd be doing 1/10 of the work overall. So you can keep up that momentum as you're writing. I find group processing is actually convenient for a couple of things. One is this kind of general processing where we're doing things like high passing or low passing, maybe adding ambience to a group as well. But when you use it on something like a drum group, and you've compressed each element of the drum kit and then sent that into a group to compress as a whole, it really adds that kind of glued together feeling so that the drum kit feels like one instrument and not just a collection of pieces being hit. Now, tip number 5 is one that I'm fairly certain is largely unknown, and that is Control+X. Not Command-X, that's cut. Control+X. Now, this is what Control+X does. I'm going to record a little bit of audio here, just some of me speaking. Test 1, 2, check 1, 2. Testing the microphone, testing the microphone. So here's a little audio clip. Test 1, 2, check 1, 2, testing the microphone, testing the microphone. Now luckily I'm not in a very noisy environment, so there's not much noise that made it in there, and you could get away with using that as is. But if you wanted to remove the silence in between words, or maybe the little bit of background noise in between words, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to do one of 2 things. You're going to reach for a noise gate, or you're going to manually cut the noise between phrases. But we're going to do something even quicker. You're going to select your audio, and you're going to press Control+X. And that's going to bring up this window. This is Logic's built-in way of manually cutting up an audio region automatically, if that makes sense. You can set the threshold here. to see how much audio you're going to let through. Depends on how tight you want it. I think about there is pretty good. And we're going to press OK. And it cuts up your audio like that. Now, anyone that's cut up audio in Logic knows that sometimes hard edges to an audio region can create like a little pop. So while you have everything selected, you can either hit 3, which is now your fade tool command, and quickly add a little fade to the beginning and to the end. Or, if you want to be really precise, while you have everything selected, head up to Region, More, and you can add a tiny bit of fade in and a tiny bit of fade out. 1 or 2 will do. Test 1, 2, check 1, 2, testing the microphone, testing the microphone. But wait, before you click away from the video, congratulations for making it this far. Your reward is 5 more tips that won't show up in the timestamps. So here we go. You want to repeat this loop 4 more times? Command R is your friend. Select whatever your audio region is, and Command R will simply extend it. Think of Command R as meaning repeat. Okay, say you cut this region in half, and you only want every second half of the bar to play. Use your marquee tool and select the range that you want to repeat. Now use Command R. And you even repeat the gaps. Tip 3. You can change the default setting in any of your plugins. Say I go to my tape delay, and I'd rather it started up with the dry signal 100%, more wet signal, or more feedback, no tempo sync. I can just go to the drop-down menu up here, press Save as Default, and now this is the setting that will pop up every time I start up that plugin. Tip number 4. You can turn fade-outs into tape slowdowns. So this is a fade. And if we right-click, it will give us the option to slow down. Now have a listen. The same goes for fade-ins. Tip number 5. Always change your snap to absolute value. For some reason, Logic's default is relative value, and that means that eventually your tracks will drift off of the grid as you repeat them and cut them and chop and change them. Always keep it absolute to make sure you stay locked to the grid. So there we are. I hope you learned something from this video and that these tips speed up your workflow in Logic Pro X and keep you inspired while you're producing and writing. If you liked the video, you can help me out by liking it, subscribing to the channel, and leaving a comment below. Links to my social media and my music on different streaming platforms down in the description below, as well as links to everything that you see in my videos in case you want to start your own home producing setup. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.